Boy, we've had to do all kinds of different things. You know, back in the day, one time we had a hot air balloon come in for an event before we had Big Sioux Powersports, so we had to go out and make sure we could help land a hot air balloon, which was unique. Another time, we used to do Hot Harley nights for several years, and we had Sanford that was big involved, and they used to bring their helicopter in, so got to ride in a helicopter. But cool. In terms of odds and ends jobs, man, you'd be surprised.
What the oil wrestling?
Oh, yeah. Oil wrestling. There was one time that this is not a job I had to do, but we had the CEOs come through. This was probably in the early 2000s. CEO of Harley was coming through on their way to the rally with a group of presidents and vice presidents. So a job we had to do was wash their motorcycles. They were spending the night on a Friday night and leaving Saturday. So we all stuck around washing motorcycles, had probably a few too many beers, and somehow I ended up on the CEO's motorcycle in my boxers wearing his leather coat.
Thank you for joining us. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending it with us.
This show is talking about beyond the blueprint and what happens kind of behind the scenes of the construction world, and also what happens in our lives from a family business and ranching and all the things that keep us building and moving forward.
And if there's something that you heard that resonates with you, whether it was a joke, an idea, please like this, share it with someone you know, and feel free to leave comments. We look forward to seeing what you have to say.
Let's dig in.
Welcome to this episode of Two Bs in a Podcast. I'm Brad Jans with Jans Corporation, joined again by my brother Brian. We're sitting today with Joe and Jimmy Entenman of J&L Harley-Davidson. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for this invite.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad we could fit into your schedule.
I think we've had to reschedule it several times. I don't think it was us, but we appreciate you doing this.
Not a problem.
Very much.
So it's kind of unique. We talked about, on our other episodes, us being brothers, you guys being brothers, the family business dynamic. We'll talk a little bit about that. But first question, when you see us, are we real bikers or are we just kind of like...
I'm not sure how
with that mustache, you certainly have gone up a couple of levels of badassness. I tell you what.
You know, the 5 o'clock shadow that Brian has. I mean, you guys are kind of getting there. I mean... I think biker, there's a lot of different definitions of biker.
Yeah.
Right? So are you like a 1%er wearing a patch and riding in a gang? No. But do you guys enjoy riding bikes and burning gas and oil? Then that's kind of what we consider bikers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as an example, I don't have any tattoos.
Yeah. That's interesting,
Yeah, you know, most people associate bikers with tattoos, but I don't have any, but I live on a motorcycle given the time, so I love to ride. So I think a lot has to do with just kind of state of mind, right? Like, nothing is better than two wheels, right?
Has that changed over time, you think? I mean, if you were to look 40 years ago, would you have said differently, like, that's a biker and that's not? You could tell more?
Well, like 30, 40 years ago, there was, what did they call them? Rubs? Rich urban bikers, where, we still have a lot of customers that are demographic, broad demographic, I would say motorcycling is definitely more widely accepted than what it used to be. And I would say that it's even contrary to what people think, it's growing. There's a lot of younger people getting into it right now. And so it's just, if you enjoy burning gas and oil and out there riding, then it's what it is. But 40 years ago, a biker had a different terminology, different connotation.
And I think, a lot of the old school outlaw biker mindset really came about after World War II, right? All the GIs came back from World War II in Germany. Harley at that time had switched production to being war supporting effort, right? So Harley would actually go out and train the GIs on how to work on their own motorcycles, right? So very similar to today, those guys come back, they're looking for brothership, ways to get together. They had the experience with the motorcycles. So I think the first 1%er gang was like 1949 in California. The Booze Fighters, I believe, was really well known. And then it kind of just grew up, from there. But for me, I think bikers is more of a mindset, right? Like my favorite thing is just to get out. We could say no cages because you experience the riding, right? So you go, let's say it's a nice spring day, you go up the hill, you hit that haze of the dew, you go down, the temperature variation, going on the ride, right? So if you just enjoy, like Jimmy said, it's such a broad spectrum because it's all about freedom and having fun, man. That's
So
what we love.
you get a lot of like younger guys that ride. Like we have technicians and stuff like that are younger. I mean, we could say that now because we're in our mid to late 40s, right? So that we have a lot
mid.
of
Someone's
for me.
50.
Mid.
Someone hit 50.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Old balls, loose skin. But you know, those guys, motorcycling to those guys is going fast, riding wheelies, you know, that sort of thing. That's what they're really into. The older you get, you're in it more for the ride, long distance riding, maybe a little bit more comfort. You're going to give more of a touring bike instead of like a Dyna or a Softail, right? So it's just different levels.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Do you guys think you're bikers?
Well, so you know our dad, Dale, and he's lifelong biker. He rides all the time. So he may watch this. So we kind of want you just to tell us that we are. Like he can feel proud of us.
I got you.
you
Well,
guys
we've
have-
already established the level of badassness due to that. So I would say you guys are bikers.
I mean, on a scale of like 1 to 10, as far as like badassness goes,
Yeah.
maybe 6,
Hey, I could
5
live
and a
with
half,
that.
6.
I'll take that.
I mean, where would you rate Joe and I on a badassness scale?
I mean, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. Oh wait, just bad or? I mean, I go like 7.5, 8.
Oh,
There you go. I'll take that.
I'll take that.
We've been on a big ride together. We went to Milwaukee a couple years ago, and going through that rainstorm the entire trip. That
Going
was pretty,
75 miles an hour in a rainstorm?
I'd say that's pretty badass.
Or did Stacy know you were going that fast in a rainstorm?
She does now.
Joe was leading that, by the way. And, you know, I had to like take my glasses off and like open my helmet up because I couldn't see and just stick them in somewhere. And then I looked down at the speedometer. I'm like, fuck, we're going 75 miles an hour in this torrential downpour.
I couldn't see, so I didn't know how fast we were going. I just was
Watching the road.
Well, and the storm, I think, was moving at 75 miles an hour, too.
You're right.
It just
We
stuck
stayed
right
with
up-
it the whole damn time.
Yeah.
And as soon as we would get to the edge of it, we'd stop for gas, and then it would.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
move
a lot of rain.
That was a lot. I think my boots are still wet.
Yeah.
2 years later.
Yeah, my clothes didn't dry.
No.
That's right. Like I had to like lay out my stuff in the hotel room just to get it to dry. Definitely one of those trips you want to make sure you bring one more pair of underwear with you just in case.
Maybe put them in a little plastic bag.
Well, tell us a little bit about the history of J&L, how you guys got started, how you guys got involved.
Yeah, I mean, well, so J&L started with the J stands for Jim, the L stands for Lonnie, who's our uncle. So actually, dating back to 1975 is when we officially became a Harley dealer. But they actually, a few years earlier, answered an ad in the Argus Leader paper, I believe, for looking for a single line Powersports dealer. Prior to that, our grandfather had gas stations in town, opened up a small engine repair shop where Jim and Lonnie were working, and then through the Argus Leader, they rode in and ended up getting the dealership. Is that correct?
Yeah. You know, so we were one of 20-some people that applied for the Harley-Davidson franchise back in 1975. And we got it because we were going to be a single-line dealer. Other people were going to carry more brands. And our dad and our uncle worked there. Our grandparents were like the owners. They had other businesses, so this was something for our dad and our uncle to do. And when we started out, we were 3 employees. We were over on Burnside, across the street from the Sport Bowl. And, you know, we got the dealership. And so Jim and Lonnie and Joe and I, we have seen a lot of ups and downs with the company. You know, we're on our, you know, we've been in business now for 50 years as a Harley-Davidson dealership.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big deal. And there's not a lot of, you know, dealerships and family businesses that have been around that long, you know. So, and, you know, so they've seen a lot of ups and downs with the company. They've known a lot of people with the motor company. And, you know, it's been a lot of fun. You know, we bleed orange and black, you know.
Yep.
We also like anything that burns gas and oil. So we also have Big Sioux Powersports that we opened that back in 2012. So we sell Can-Am, side-by-sides, ATVs over there as well. So it's just been, that's how they got into it. Where we're doing this podcast right now, this is our 3rd location. So, you know, we were over on Burnside across the street from the Sport Bowl. We were in that building for 20 years. They built a building across the street from it, right next door to the Sport Bowl. And we were in that building for 7 or 8 years. And then we came up here in 01, 02.
Yep.
And we've added on. We've added other buildings. We've added the Riding Academy range. You know, we also have Harley-Davidson of Fargo in West Fargo, North Dakota. So we have a full dealership up there as well. And so, yeah, I mean.
In our journey, you know, really just, you know, obviously, funny story. So Sturgis is a big deal to South Dakota. My birthday is in August, and the story my parents used to tell me is when they found out that they were pregnant with me, my dad goes, "Oh shit, that's Sturgis," right? Because we're so busy that having a baby during the rally time is not really the way to do it, right?
You know, they would work 24 hours a day back
in the rally day.
Back in the day.
You know, so then fast forward, but Jimmy and I were always kicking around the dealership, but we really realistically got heavily involved more so right out of college, and then just started the transition. It was about a 15-year process as Jim and Lonnie, you know, they made sure that we had the skills to kind of continue the business. And probably about 17 is when we started buying out Lonnie, and then Jim came out and we bought him out about 2020. So.
Yeah. And you're still learning every day, right?
Yeah.
It's just there's not a playbook, especially nowadays after COVID and everything like that. It's completely different.
Yeah, company dynamics, and obviously, like you said, the ups and downs. That's all changed, and it's good that it wasn't just given to you. It wasn't like here, you know. And I think that's where a lot of businesses fail, or family businesses, in that change when you have to earn it and you have to show that you can.
And you know, I think Joe and I are very fortunate. We try to always keep lines of communication open between us. You know, sometimes we're better at it than other times. You know, I think that's just natural. But we also like a lot of the same things. You know, we both want the same things out of life. You know, we complement each other. Like, you give Joe like numbers and a spreadsheet and, you know, everything like that, and he can figure it out, and he does a hell of a job. And I guess I just have a pretty smile.
Yeah, you're the
You're the look.
You remember that movie Twins?
Yeah.
Like, he's Arnold Schwarzenegger and I'm Danny DeVito.
What? I don't know about that.
That kind of looks different.
I mean, you know, he has the personality, and I just sit in the back row.
Yeah. So, you know, we complement each other very well. You know, one thing that we really try to focus on here, you know, every staff meeting, every manager meeting, we touch on our mission, vision, and values, why we're here, why we do what we do. We really try to work closely with our managers and our general managers and our department managers to manage a team. Joe and I really try to focus on culture quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know, we spent, you know, last year was our 50th anniversary. We celebrated that, and that was kind of a year that we really focused on our internal culture and like kind of getting our team to where we want, and this is why we do what we do. And you know, I think a big part of that is when your team sees you in the trenches as well. They know that they're not alone in doing what they're doing. And I would say, you know, right now at all of our locations, you know, we have some really good teams. There's always stuff to work on, but you know, I think everybody is moving in the same direction, which I think is very important in an organization when you have over 60 employees.
Absolutely.
You
know, when Jan's Corporation first started, it was truly just a general contractor, and we've grown and diversified. And you guys just mentioned, obviously, the Powersport addition to yours and Fargo. What would made that decision to expand out and try other markets and try other locations?
You know, like with Fargo, interestingly enough, it was owned by a guy named Delhofer prior to us, and he had it for 53 years when we bought it. And he was actually our father's mentor. So Jim and Lonnie had been talking with him for several years about possibly when he got to the point of retirement, and he just never really committed. And then
Jim and Lonnie actually tried to buy it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and then exactly. And then I think it was May of one year, you and I went for a motorcycle trip and just went up to visit Del because he was a collector, so he had a bunch of motorcycles. And he said he'd take us out for lunch, which he ended up giving us the bill, of course. But then he just said something like, "Well, boys, I'm ready to get out of this, and if you had any balls about you, you'd do it without your father and your old man, you know, or without your uncle and old man." We're like, "Oh shit!" So it was really an opportunity thing, and you know, we have such a badass, cool brand that it's fun to really push. Like Jimmy mentioned, the culture. You know, we're big on events. We're big on having fun, burning gas and oil. So we just saw a lot of opportunity up there, and the timing was right. Power Sports store, like with Big Sioux Powersports, that just jives into what we do, right? Engines, having fun, tearing stuff up. So.
Can-Am's a performance product. It's higher end. You know, you can buy a Polaris that would be less money, but they hold up when you roll them in a field. You know,
Allegedly.
But the fit and function and performance of a Can-Am goes right along with Harley-Davidson. It's a great product. The 3-wheel Spider Roadsters that we sell over there, you know, there's definitely a niche for that, and there's a need for those bikes. And we actually got into that business because we wanted to. Back in 2010, Harley came out with a trike, and we were selling all of our trikes. Like, we didn't have any, and we needed more stuff to sell, and the Spider was out, and we're like, well, let's see if we can sell these Spiders. And then they're like, well, you need to carry the off-road line because there's not a Can-Am off-road dealer. Well, that ended up being a bigger business than the Spider. We also carry Royal Enfield motorcycles over there as well, which is a lower price point bike, anywhere between, you know, $5,000 and $9,000. You know, you can get into a 350 all the way up to like a 650, and they're a great bike. They're a great price point. It's like 40-year-old technology with fuel injection. You know,
One thing you want changed.
You're right. So that it's just you can hop on that bike and go.
Yep.
You don't have to sync your phone to it. You don't have to do any of that BS to it. You know, so Can-Am, I mean, that's been a good business. You know, it's a smaller business, but we have some good, really good technicians over there, and we have some good staff up front. So
Yeah, and just and our desire has always just been to grow, do more. You know, the Tommy Boy once said that you're either growing or dying. There ain't no third direction, right? So so it's something that we try to always kind of push the envelope. You know.
Maybe touch a little bit on the Riding Academy, because we see, I mean, anytime it's rain, shine, whatever, there's 30 bikes out there riding around the circle.
So ever since we moved up here, we've always done Harley-Davidson's rider training program, and that's had a few different iterations. It used to be called Rider's Edge, which, thinking back on it, why would you name something that if it doesn't kind of describe what you're trying to do, right? So they changed the name to Harley-Davidson Riding Academy. So you could take that class here with us. We have instructors that are trained through the state safety rider training program, and they're trained through Harley-Davidson. So we have some really good instructors. Our class is 25 hours long. We only have 6 students per class, so it's a smaller classroom. You get more one-on-one time with the instructor, and you get more range time. And it's also geared to Harley-Davidson. So like they go through that timeline, you know, the Harley-Davidson timeline that we have there. They talk about Harley-Davidson gear. We give them a tour, talk about the bikes. They get to sit on it. They get to try gear on. So a little bit more of a Harley spin to it. And then when you graduate the program, you get an endorsement card, and you can take that down to the DMV, wait in line for 4 hours, and then you can get your endorsement put on your driver's license. We also... a number of years ago, we put in a bigger range. So these ranges, they're behind our store. A number of years ago, we put in a larger range because we also have the state, the South Dakota Safety Council. They do their basic rider class here as well, and they got some other ranges as well. But so we have a bigger range that more students can fit on in their classes. It's also a really good class, kind of the same curriculum. Ours just has more of a Harley twist to it, and you know, it's something that we've always believed in. You know, our classes generally fill up. Our Riding Academy program will train anywhere from like 150 to 200 students a year.
Wow. That's a lot.
And then you add on, those are all students coming through our doors. Then you add on the state safety course that we try to engage with and get those students to participate with what we have going on as well. So we got a lot of people that learn how to ride bikes up here. And I was talking to the state coordinator earlier this week. And their classes have been filling up. So there's a demand for classes.
How old do you have to be, and do you bring your own bike, or is that provided for you?
Both programs, the state actually, they provide their own bikes, and they even have some Royal Enfields as well.
Sure.
And then we provide the bikes for our class, and it's a Harley-Davidson. It's a smaller Harley-Davidson. It's not like a Street Glide or a Road Glide or anything that you learn on, but it's the bike that they have for their program.
How old do you have to be to sign up?
You can actually, the state says that you can take it when you're 13 and a half.
Really?
But
Wow.
you know, 14 years old or older.
My son's 16. He wants to get his license, and that's the best
What are
way
you
to
waiting
go.
for?
Yeah.
School to get out, I guess.
Yeah, it is cool because it takes some. The programs are designed like the Riding Academy to take. It's good for people that have ridden before, or if you've had zero experience. So we've had a lot of 14-year-olds. We've even had some. I think the oldest we had was a gentleman that was 76 years old that went through it. So a wide variety of people take it. And what's really cool, like Jimmy said about the Riding Academy, is since it is only limited to 6 students, they have that opportunity to get that one-on-one vibe, from the instructor and really help them through their journey as they get into motorcycling. So it's pretty cool.
So going back to your 17 years growing up in the business, what was the most odd job you had to do?
Oh boy.
How about that time when the guy shit on the showroom floor?
Yeah, there was one time a guy pooped on the
Brad?
floor. It was, oh boy, we've had to do all kinds of different things. We've back in the day, one time we had a hot air balloon come in for an event before we had Big Sioux Powersports, so we had to go out and make sure we could help land a hot air balloon, which was unique. Another time, we used to do Hot Harley nights for several years, and we had Sanford that was big involved, and they used to bring their helicopter in, so got to ride in a helicopter. But
cool.
In terms of odds and ends jobs, man, you'd be surprised.
How about the oil wrestling?
Oh, yeah. Oil wrestling. There was one time that this is not a job I had to do, but we had the CEOs come through. This was probably in the early 2000s. CEO of Harley was coming through on their way to the rally with a group of presidents and vice presidents. So a job we had to do was wash their motorcycles. They were spending the night on a Friday night and leaving Saturday. So we all stuck around washing motorcycles, had probably a few too many beers, and somehow I ended up on the CEO's motorcycle in my boxers wearing his leather coat.
There's got to be a picture of that
There
somewhere.
was, and then I made the mistake of sending it to him. And I was like, my wife was like, "What the heck are you doing sending a?" I'm like, "Oh, that was a bad idea." Luckily, I knew him at the time, so he thought it was
When
fine.
we opened Fargo, remember when Mike Kennedy, he came for our grand opening, and we plastered his hotel room with pictures of us in frames and stuff like that.
So we got our old man and Jimmy and I. We took a bunch of awkward family photos, and then we got into his hotel room before he checked in and framed them all and put them all up on the dresser and on the wall and stuff. And then so when he checked in, he didn't know what the heck was going on.
he thought he was walking into somebody else's room.
Yeah,
But,
but
there's been random stuff. Jobs, you do the normal kid jobs when you're growing up in the business, right? Like cleaning bathrooms, mopping, emptying the ashtrays, that was a big thing actually when we moved to the store across the street
in '92,
right next to Burnside. We didn't allow smoking in there anymore, and our grandma was still alive. And so she was pissed because she would always sit in her office and smoke. But
we had a lot of people at the time who were mad because
bet,
they accused us of being like a Macy's.
Yeah, they were calling us Macy's.
Because we weren't
Dayton's.
Dayton's. That's right. Because we wouldn't allow smoking inside of our building anymore in '92. Yeah. So
That was revolutionary back there. though.
And it was kind of funny. You'd see our grandma outside smoking, then all of our staff would be out smoking with our grandma. We're like, is anybody working?
They took up smoking just to take a break. Right?
to hang out
Right,
with
we're working. They got to smoke. All right.
Yeah. Just the typical stuff. There was one time some random guy came into the store wearing kind of short running shorts and walked around, got pissed and opened them up and a log fell out and we had to pick that up.
I've never seen anybody poop standing up.
It happens.
That's a talent.
It is we were all
a
more
kid does it
impressed
all the
than
time.
anything.
I've tried to do it and I can't do it. Just makes a mess.
Not on the floor down here though, right? No.
Maybe it's the biker shorts.
That could have been it. Yeah, I don't know, but that was weird.
Let's get back to the oil wrestling. Were you the Oilers or what was your role?
Boy.
So it was.
Fortunately, this was 23 years ago.
Yeah, it was during
100th anniversary.
the 100th anniversary. We threw a big party here, and then we were leaving the next day with a bunch of customers to go out to the 100th anniversary rally in Milwaukee. My dad thought it'd be cool to bring in this oil wrestling. Well, it ended up, they worked for tips.
So, and it was supposed to be like an oil wrestling, they could go to bars and they'd put on that. And it was just kind of like a service you hired and they had a flyer. Well, they show up, it's like a traveling group of gypsies, right? They show up in a motorhome filled with 8 ladies and 2 guys. And apparently there was and then they start working the crowd. We're like, what kind
And
of
our little sister was down there at the time.
And we're like, what the hell is going on? We didn't know this was a stripper show going on. Oh, man. So needless to say, that was interesting.
Our dad arranged that.
Yeah, we're like, get back in the camper and get out of here.
Which, You
I
were
mean,
you were 19 or 20
I was
at the
21.
time.
I was 22. So it was kind of like in
It's
between.
not where you
like,
met one of your wives.
It was
right?
like no, it was definitely one. It's kind of like, is this cool or not cool? I can't decide. I'm torn right now, right? Like it seems wrong. We better stop this. So.
But we're also responsible. So
Yeah,
let's get
exactly.
Right. Yeah. So that was interesting.
Yeah, once again, thankfully 23 years ago, right? And that's the
Yep.
thing too. The business has changed. Some of the things
Oh,
that
yeah.
were like more acceptable back in the day
Yep.
certainly aren't anymore.
That's an HR
Yep.
File.
And it's a
complaint
good thing
waiting
though
to happen.
too.
Well, we're HR.
Well, so that's easy.
Yeah.
Nice. File it away, right?
I'll deal with it later. Yeah.
You mentioned Sturgis. How many times have you actually been to Sturgis?
I've been there once.
That's all I've
Really?
been there. Yep, one
That
time.
is crazy.
2021, I think we went out.
Yep. We went out there for a couple days and then came back.
Yeah, we actually went out there to sell shirts.
Yeah.
We had a great idea of selling some flannels, Dixon flannels,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we bought
Those boat tail ones.
those boat tails.
Yep.
We kind of overbought. We bought 5,000 of them, and then,
We thought we would sell them all in like 4 days.
yeah,
But, you
which
know,
we did. We sold a shit ton of them out of the rally.
We did, but we're still selling them.
Yeah, we sold a couple.
Yeah, that was
Vintage
my-
now.
I
Tyler
ordered them.
vintage.
Yeah.
I ordered them. That's why we don't deal with. I don't do the ordering.
You're back in
down anymore.
HR.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been out there once. You know, before kids, my wife and I, we would always go ride out there the end of August. I always
Yeah.
enjoyed that. You know, because
Yeah, the Hills is such a great place to
yeah,
ride.
and you know we deal with crowds a lot.
Yeah.
You know, so we deal with a lot of people. We're always talking to people, so it's kind of nice to get out and ride when you don't have to
Actually
deal
enjoy
with
the ride.
Yeah.
don't have to deal with crowds.
Yeah.
So
I'm kind of a lone wolf. I like to just like if the rally was going on and I had that time off, I'd probably go the opposite
right.
direction.
Yeah.
yeah, I'd rather go ride the Mississippi than go
Yeah,
than go to the rally.
Really, there's not a ton of riding you can do during the rally because it's so busy. Like
Yeah.
even you go like Needles Highway, it's
Yeah. And
hours
it's super
to go.
cool. Yeah, we're very thankful for it because
Yeah.
it helps our business out immensely. That's the other thing. We're like
You're
we're
busy
we're
here.
busy. We're you know from
7
the end,
days a
we're
week.
7 days a week from like the middle of July through the end of the rally. We're 7 days a week.
And it
so.
really gives us an opportunity to meet a lot of cool people too. Like we've had WWE wrestlers come through on bikes. We've had
Yeah.
all kinds of celebrities that will just hop on their bikes and ride through.
people from all over the world that stop through here. You know.
People are looking for a fix right away because they break down.
Yeah, you know,
that and just getting off the road, right?
Yeah, the bikes are made better now, so we don't have a lot of the catastrophic breakdowns, but
Yeah.
a lot of tires, a lot of oil changes. You know, we do sell bikes to people passing through.
Right.
You know, we do that. It used to be, though, back in the day, even like 10 years ago, I mean, we would get breakdowns or engine blowing up, you know, all the time, but you don't see a lot of that
good, yeah.
with the new bikes nowadays.
Occasionally, what used to be really common is guys that would hit the road on like a 70s, 80s motorcycle with $200 in their pocket on a 2-week vacation,
yeah.
and they
Zero
break.
planning.
Right.
Hadn't changed oil in
Yeah,
a decade.
I mean, so back in the day, we would get guys that would break down and we'd fix their bike and
They'd
didn't
sleep
have,
outside.
They'd sleep outside, and then we'd maybe have to give them tasks to do to help pay the bills so they could get back on their trip. I mean,
There's a log out on the center showroom.
right? It's impressive. I don't know how it happened, but let's take a picture.
Yeah. So I mean, definitely the rally, and it seems like the traffic, it's always different every year. Just depending on what's going on. I think, I think you're going to see we're coming off of an anniversary year, so the crowds aren't going to be kind of quite as big, but we'll still get a ton of people to pass through here. We're right on 90 and 29, so we get a ton of traffic.
You guys go to Sturgis quite a bit, though, don't you? Or you have been?
I used to, and my wife and I went the year before we got married. We got married in September, so we went that August before, and I haven't been back since just because I started having kids and work too. And we used to have a place out there that we could stay at. My parents had a place, and so without that, haven't, but I'm looking to go again. It's been too long.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing from what the guys that go every year just really enjoy seeing the variety of people from every.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're on the eastern side too, right? So we only see 50% of the people that are actually at the rally.
Yeah.
Everybody else has come from the western side of the state, so we only see half the traffic. But we'll get people from Hong Kong, Philippines, Australia, New Zealand every year. It's pretty cool.
The people is definitely fun to watch, but the bikes too. It's like, how do people ride some of these things?
I enjoy it. Like when we were out there, we got to be at the FXR bike show and stuff like that at the Buffalo Chip. So that I enjoy those as well. But like now with the rally, all the crazy stuff happens in the campgrounds.
Right, yeah.
So
And they're getting further and further out of town. It seems
yeah,
like,
and there's
too.
not much craziness that happens in Sturgis,
Right.
you know, but it's everything
Yep.
at the campgrounds is like where all the crazy shit happens.
Yeah, I've told people too, like even if you're not into bikes, just to go out there and watch people, even for a day. I mean, I lived out there right out of college for 5 years and went every single year, and then got married, and it was like every 3, and now with kids, it's every 5. And yeah, it's just I think everybody should at least experience it once.
What's your favorite experience from Sturgis?
You know, so when I moved out there, it was the turn of the millennium. So it was the summer of '99. And I remember it changed a lot from there going into the early 2000s. You know, a lot of people would say like it got more commercialized, but like there was a WWE ring set up like in the corner of Main Street, and that drew a big crowd. I mean, the concerts are always good. But yeah, I'd work during the day and then buzz out there for the evening and check out a concert or just hang out on Main Street. But
It would have been cool to see Snoop Dogg at the Buffalo Chip, though.
Yeah.
That would have been a cool concert to see. I would have liked to see that. You know, it's Sturgis. It's its own animal. You know, we don't have anything to do with Black Hills Harley. You know, so I mean, they sell a crap ton of bikes during the rally.
Right.
You know, so yeah, it's the motorcycle mecca, and you know, you're gonna see. Now through the next few years, you're going to see an even bigger presence from Harley-Davidson out there.
Really?
Because they're not doing their homecoming rally anymore. They're only going to do it every 5 years instead of every year. They're only going to do it on the anniversary years, which that's the way it should. That's the way it should be.
Yep.
You know, so you're going to see even a larger and bigger presence from Harley out at these big rallies all over the United States.
You know what I realized is one thing that has changed with technology is one thing that we used to get all the time that was so funny to me is people would be coming from the east, Ohio or whatever. If it was there before GPS and telling you how long you have to get to your spot, people would always hit Sioux Falls and they'd stop and they'd be like, "Oh, we're almost to Sturgis," and it'll be like, "Sorry, buddy, you got another 7 hours to go." You know what I'm saying? Like their first time, but that was
They don't
always
realize
entertaining.
how big this state is.
Yeah.
One of my best Sturgis stories, I was living out in Denver, and for some reason, my dad let me take his Dyna and have it out in Denver. And Brad was living in the hills. This was like 2002. And so I left work on a Friday and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to come up and just to start a Sturgis week." So I took off after 5 o'clock or so from Denver and rolled into the South Dakota border, and I stopped. It was starting to get dark, a little chillier, so I put on a extra pair of leather chaps and put on a glove and a heavier coat. Took off and was going right by the Harney Lounge out of Hill City and smoked a deer, T-boned it. So went down on my side, the bike and the deer went out in front of me. I watched them just spin doing sparks. I'm laying on my side. Got up, my glove was shredded. I had a crack in the side of my helmet and hole in my leather jacket. And I call him up and I'm like, "Hey, I need you to come get me." So he has like a Dodge Dakota at the time. So he comes and I wheel it over.
Was he sober?
Yeah, he had just gotten off work. Okay. Oh, I think he was anyway. I guess I didn't do a breathalyzer check.
We'll say I was.
We'll say I was.
I picked the bike up and we kicked it over and was shooting oil out of the derby cover on the side. And I can't ride it, so we pulled it over to the Harney Lounge and he pulls in and we went and found the 5 biggest bikers we could in the bar. We lifted it up into the back of his pickup. We went out that night to celebrate a little bit, and then the next morning we took it to Black Hills and dropped it off. And I think I was riding it by Sunday.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, your old man even rode to Alaska, didn't he?
Yeah, he's done that. He's done, I don't even know how many miles he's put on.
Coast to coast and border to borders. And
The time he went to Alaska, he rode all the way, from here up to the point of Juneau or somewhere. In Anchorage, he was in Anchorage for a while. And he actually parked his bike in Anchorage, flew home for 2 weeks for some meetings, flew back, and then rode back through Sturgis. Actually rode back, and it was a Buell at the time. is
Yeah,
what he had.
Buell Ulysses. I remember it well.
And a wheel bearing went out as he was rolling into town. I mean, why wouldn't it? I think he dumped it like 3 times when he was on gravel roads up in Canada and Alaska. And I remember that was the week, or maybe it was the year we got married, because the next week he's like, "Hey, who wants to go to Sturgis? I'm going to go back out." Like, really? Like, you just went through all that? He's like, "Yeah, let's go again." And he just lives to ride.
Your dad's a rider, man.
He is.
Yeah.
Him and Lonnie.
Yeah, our Uncle Lonnie and him like to just put the miles on to this day. And those are some guys you probably wouldn't associate as a normal biker, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
they're riding the shit out of them. So.
Yeah.
yeah. You talked a little bit about like the evolution of the biker, or what about the evolution of bikes? What are you seeing change in the technology and the?
Well, as Joe would say, it's really hard to just hop on a bike and go nowadays with some of these new bikes, because if you're riding a touring bike, you got to sync your phone up and you got to do all that BS to it. But when you hop on your Road King or hop on my 03 Road King, you can just hop on and go. You know, you're seeing a lot more technology because that's what people want.
And and to Jimmy's point, I'm kind of a purist, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, since I've been riding for so long and spent so many years on bikes, that it was hard for me to change. So they came out with the new touring bikes around 23 and a half, and they redid the instrument clusters on the switches. So that's a little bit of a change. Now I find myself aging and not liking change, right? So it's more so just getting used to the changes. But from a rideability standpoint, some of these new bikes, like this 24 Street Glide I'm riding right now, the amount of power and the weight reduction.
Just stock.
Yeah, just stock. I mean, you take like a touring bike, but it feels like you're riding a much smaller bike due to the weight distribution and the low center of gravity. So then it also then equals more fun riding, right? When you feel more comfortable on it. So like Jimmy said, with the audio, getting used to screens and all that. But this Road King I'm riding right now, back to what Jimmy said, it's cool. Jimmy has an 03 Road King, so I kind of made this 24 to kind of look like it. But the cool thing about that, there's no electronics. So you flip the switch, wait for the fuel injection, hit the start, and you're rolling, right? So it's kind of just, if you're looking for that escapism, that's what I like. But back to your question, I mean, really, technology improvements, right? I think a lot of it comes down to manufacturing technology as they've gotten better gas. I mean, the transition from the Evolution motor to the twin cam, for example, that was in about 99 on the touring bikes. They reduced the number of gasket surfaces, right? So less gasket surfaces equal less oil leaks. So some of those kind of things is where the improvements are seeing.
Sure.
And manufacturing technology and even, the material sciences have improved so much over the last 20 years that the materials that go into making the engines and all that, they distribute heat better. They're able to produce more power out of the same displacement, or changing it up. So a lot of improvements. And just, you don't really see, it's kind of like your kids, right? You see your kids every day. You don't necessarily witness the changes because you're living with them. But I guarantee that if you hop on a new bike and then compare it to a bike from 15 years ago, there's a huge change. And you're going to notice it.
Because yours is a 23, right? Yours is a 23 ST? Yeah, like the new Street Glides compared to your bike, completely different.
Yeah. You're trying to sell me a bike?
Well, always. Always. But, the new bikes, too, like a Street Glide versus a Street Glide, there's a 30-pound weight difference. So, like,
I can add that back on.
They've dropped 30 pounds. I mean, imagine if you dropped 30 pounds. How many difference that would make, right?
Your knees feel better. You're running around. All of a sudden you feel younger.
They've cut like 30 pounds off the new bikes.
Yeah.
So
using different materials, or
different materials.
One big thing, for example, is on the new touring bikes, they're able to reduce the weight of the fuel tank by 4 pounds by adding a crease in the bend, right? Okay. So it's just that manufacturing technology of added rigidity by reducing the materials that go into it, which reduces weight.
And you're also going to see in the future, you're going to see them coming out with a more of a price ladder portfolio, like they used to be, 15 years ago. Right. They're going to be getting back into that price ladder of a portfolio. So, that's something that we're really excited about, because just like how you guys started, right? Start out on a Sportster or start out on a Sportster. You're going to ride that for a year or 2 years, and you're going to trade that in or sell it, and then you're going to get a Dyna, right? You're going to ride a Dyna for a few years, then maybe you'll have a couple Softails, then eventually you're going to get into a touring bike and so on. So we're going to see that again.
And Harley's always been good at pushing the technology envelope, more so than most people actually realize. As an example, your old man's Buell Ulysses, that was one of the first bikes on the market with an outer perimeter disc brake, right? The ZTL braking system, zero torsion load or something. Well, that was in a small number of bikes that Harley produced through Buell. Well, they came out with that now on most sport bikes, right? So that technology Harley came out with the V-Rod in the early 2000s, right? And that was a combination of an engineering effort with Porsche and Harley-Davidson, right? So they've actually had a lot of the technology out earlier that they'll then later on incorporate into the bikes too.
So a big focus now, or a big category that's important, along with that new screen and they call it the Skyline system, like their internal computer system and everything on the bikes, is just the compatibility with communicators and helmets. Right, that's the big thing that people want. They want communicators to be able to talk to their passengers, their friends, listen to their music and everything, because we sell a lot of helmets. So we sell a lot of full face helmets, and everybody wants that communication with their stereo, with their GPS and everything like that through their earpiece and their helmet. So
Absolutely.
that's a really big focus for them.
So you're selling a huge brand. I mean, Harley-Davidson's one of the most iconic brands that people, I mean, literally tattoo themselves with. And
Yep.
You talk about innovation and change. Have they always gotten it right? You talk about burning oil and gas. Didn't they do an electric bike, the Livewire?
Yeah, and they actually split that off to a different company. It all comes down to the right product at the right time.
Right.
And
yeah. And there's a lot of pressure, obviously, from the federal government at that time. That, hey, you
there's
guys
so
are
much
gonna need to do
bullshit
this.
with all that.
Yeah, I mean, even just with the exhaust, right? But because it is a well-known national and international brand, you ask about like things not maybe getting it right. Well, sometimes they'll create a product that is more geared to California.
Right.
That's such a large. Maybe that's where the EVs kind of came
Sure.
from, right?
Yep.
That may not be as successful here because of
Right.
that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's always a challenge, but for me personally, I can always find something about every single bike I love. Like even the Livewire.
The
which-
Livewire is so fast.
with that EV that's not as successful. I mean, 0 to 60, 2.4 seconds, something stupid. It's just.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's tech. If you like motorcycles and you like technology, there's always something unique
Right,
about
yeah.
them.
And they spun Livewire off. It's its own separate company now, and you can get into a Livewire for around $10,000.
Oh, really? Wow, yeah.
When they first came out, they were like 30, just like with every stupid EV vehicle on the road, right? The cost is prohibitive because
Yeah.
it costs money.
And the other funny thing is like even like this is our 50th anniversary award that we got from Harley for being in business for 50 years, but the top of it was designed by Willie G. Davidson, the grandson of one of the founders. Well, when he went to work for Harley, in the 70s, one of his first designs was the boat tail in the early 70s, right? Which that did not do well at all. Like it was not a top seller. It wasn't that great of a bike. But now fast forward 50 years later, that's a highly sought after machine because it was unique for the design and everything else. So we've even run into that with like the Rocker C that didn't do the best, but then a few years later, everybody wants them.
You sell them used like crazy.
Yeah. So it's funny how tastes change
Oh, yeah.
and markets
Yeah.
and opportunities
With
get
stuff
missed.
when
And
it's ahead of its time, usually.
Yeah,
it
and
doesn't get
sometimes
perceived
they're
well.
not as quick to market as what you would like, but let's face it, they're not a Ford or a GM or anything like that. They just build Harleys. They just build motorcycles.
Kind of like buildings, right? There's probably some that you've built that at the time you're like, that's a really good looking building, and 20 years later you're like, what the hell
yeah.
were we thinking?
I mean, we do that all the time. You can drive around town, and just by looking at it, you can tell what decade it was built in.
Yeah.
Like,
That was
So yeah,
the hot
it's interesting. It's always new model years and product reveals are always the most exciting time of the year because that just gets everybody jacked up. So.
Well, you guys talked a little bit too about your culture here. How do you see that? Like maybe you can share a couple things that you are doing with that, and then like that new generation of biker, catering to upcoming.
So I think the biggest thing that Joe and I try to do with our dealerships and our culture is it's always trying to stay relevant, right? So Joe always says, a motorcycle quickly becomes a clothes rack in your garage if you don't have anything to do with it, right? Mm-hmm. So we're really big on events. Every weekend we have something going on at all of our stores. Nothing to us feels better than when somebody walks in and is like, man, what's going on? They walk in on a Saturday and, we're like jamming. It's a normal Saturday, right? So like we always do events. Our bike nights are pretty big. Our bike nights are a lot of fun. We do those the last Friday of every month. We do them indoors through the fall and winter, and then May will be our first one outside again. So everybody's looking forward to that. But staying relevant, giving people things to do with their motorcycles, just trying to stay out in front of them. We try to have a fairly decent social media presence, I guess. We're seeing a lot of new riders, and it's just like it's treating everybody the same. I'm going to treat this guy that's coming in and buying a pre-owned motorcycle that's 18 or 21 years old the same way that I'm going to treat Dale that's buying his 22nd motorcycle, you know, that you know, so just treating everybody the same, and everybody's concerns are important, you know. I mean, we do have a dealership and we are in retail, but we are a hybrid retail. I mean, there's not any other retail establishment out there like a Harley-Davidson dealership. We have a dealership, we sell Harley-Davidson motorcycles. We have a service department. We sell parts and accessories. You know, we sell clothing. We provide a riding academy class for people to learn to get their license. You know, we do events. We have to market. We have to have PR. You know, I mean, it's like there's no other business out there that does what we do.
And I think, you know, and right, we're piggybacking on what Jimmy said, the cultural side of it for us. I mean, Jimmy mentioned it earlier, we bleed orange and black, right? So it's nice to have it's great having a fun product that we're passionate about. And if you're passionate about your product, we're passionate about our employees. We kind of live by the golden rule, as Jimmy said, right? And because our brand appeals to so many different people, it's important that we really push that respect side of thing of treating people the same, right? Yeah. So, and that's easy to do when you can talk to somebody as a rider, right? Yeah. Rider to rider, I ride a motorcycle, you and I ride the same bikes, we can kind of speak the same lingo, understand what you're looking for, because we all just want to go out and have fun and ride motorcycles.
That's it right there, talking to our customers as a rider to a rider, you know, and majority of our staff, they all ride, you know, they're passionate, they're enthusiasts, so that's one thing that I can say that our stores do really well is what Joe said, is we speak rider to rider.
Absolutely. Well, talking about your events, the one that kind of sticks out to me, your other uncle, Yogi, manages your service department. You guys had a birthday party for him, and it was called Beer and Pretzels with Yogi. So I brought my 13-year-old up. He just got his first dirt bike, and we were hanging around looking at bikes, and you could just tell wheels were turning, and he said, "Dad, I can't wait till I can ride motorcycles with you and drink beer with you and Yogi."
I mean, that can happen tomorrow.
Yeah. So did you give him a beer then? Or what?
Well, son, you're ready. That is cool.
You know, our business was started by our dad and our uncle, Jim and Lonnie, and then their brother, Jeff, who has the nickname Yogi. He was a minority partner for a lot of years until Joe and I bought him out too. And he's still, you know, Jim and Lonnie are retired. We tried to make Yogi retire, but he just keeps coming back, you know? So he's a service manager, but he kind of dispatches, he manages the workflow down in our service department. A lot of knowledge, a lot of our customers have learned a lot from Yogi over the years. Like he's always been like that steadfast person. And so whenever it's his birthday, we always try to make a big deal. Cause he
just turned 66?
Yeah, he just turned 66. He had another birthday this past Friday.
I learned a 30-pack of Busch Light goes a long way down there.
Or Old Milwaukee Light.
Old Milwaukee Light.
Yeah, or Busch Light. I mean, really any beer.
Any beer.
Beer. Yeah. So, yeah, it's about, you know, when it's about 5:58 or maybe 5:55, there's always a...
He's ready for his old man.
Yeah.
But isn't that cool, though? I mean, like, think about that core memory you had with your kid, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's going to lock in for his rest of his life, and he thinks about how cool it is hanging out with his old man, drinking beer at the Harley store, talking motorcycles, right? Isn't that neat?
Yeah. That's how we grew up, you know, doing the same thing. Yeah. You know, I think I got my first dirt bike at 11. So you would have been.
I thought you were going to say beer.
Could have been that too.
Yeah.
Times were different.
Yeah. But you know, just learning how to ride at a young age. I mean, that's something we still go on a family trip every year on bikes. That's kind of one of those requirements, and I mean, those are where the memories truly are made.
Yep.
And even bad rides, right? Like that ride in the rain nonstop. Coincidentally, like sometimes when those situations happen, those are the things that you remember forever, and you're just like, hell yeah, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe and I, we try to take one trip a year with some of our, we have, over the years, we met some Harley dealers that are like around our same age, same family business type scenario. So once a year, we try to do a week-long trip with those guys, whether we ride, you know, the Smoky Mountains or up around the Great Lakes or something like that. But yeah, you gotta, for us, that's important for Joe and I, because we have to get out and ride to remember why, you know, you work 80 hours a week and you work retail 80 hours a week, you know? So it's important. And then, you know what? You feel refreshed, you know?
But one of Dale's famous sayings is a bad day of riding is better than a good day of work.
100%.
That's 100%.
100% true.
Yeah.
Wise man.
Yeah.
With, you know, you've got kids of your own. How are they involved in the business at all? You bring them in, make them clean toilets and stuff yet? How are you getting the next generation
You know,
ready?
like I have, Joe has 3 kids. I have 2. My oldest is 15. His social life is really busy, you know. So, I mean, if he wants, he can come into work. They come up to our bike nights and hang out and, you know, stuff like that. So they definitely come up to the business. My oldest is actually getting a job at a auto service station this summer, so down at Airway.
Yeah, you
so
bet.
he's going to work for Tom down there. So he really enjoys his auto classes. So me growing up, when I was in high school, I always wanted to kind of work for somebody else, but our dad made us work for him. So he wants to go do that. That's fine.
Perfect. Yeah.
You know, no expectations. You know, so. But Joe and I, like his middle and his youngest and my youngest, they like to come up at bike nights and run around in the summers. They come up and hang out. They have 4-wheelers and stuff.
Yeah, you know, I think that we definitely keep them included and have them be a part of Harley. The business has changed as we scaled up compared to when we were kids. As Jimmy mentioned, back in the day, there was 4 employees, so your old man kind of made you work because it was cheap labor, right? I mean, we worked all the way we could because it was a way to kind of just get the guaranteed help. You know,
$2 an hour.
$2 an hour until we were like 14 to 16, right? But that being said, I think as our kids get a little older, we'd certainly like them to get more involved with it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm leaving it up to them. You know, my youngest really likes to go fast, and
Chris,
he likes to come up and do that. And then Joe's middle, Leo, I think he's kind of the same way. He likes to go fast too. So you know, it's fun watching them play and hang out.
The cool part is you know, having a family business and having our business is when we do have those opportunity to have our kids hang out during the events like bike nights. They really like coming up for bike nights and Sioux Falls Moto Fest we do. So they're really getting a good kind of cultural exposure that way. So it's pretty badass. And we'll have, you know, like Jimmy and I, we live in the same neighborhood, so our kids are always kind of bouncing back and forth, talking motorcycles and stuff too.
So we do construction as a profession. That's what we do for.
Really?
Yeah, we do.
Is that new?
No. It's been a while. So I go home and my wife's got a list of things to do around the house. And it's the last thing I want to do. So motorcycles are our passion. It's our way to get away. But you guys, that's your livelihood. What do you do to get away from work? What's other passions? Joe, I know you've got some passions that you enjoy.
Coincidentally, I like construction.
Hey,
so I like to build stuff, right? So no, my hobby, I obviously enjoy riding every chance I get, but with a lot of the kids at home, and a lot of times, so I've redid my house, bought a foreclosed house years ago, and just been redoing that. And I like to build cabinets and that kind of stuff, and got a 3D printer a couple years ago, so I like to 3D print random stuff. So I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to that stuff.
Still got all your fingers?
So far so good. I had to buy one of those saw stops.
Oh, yeah, those are incredible.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
throw the
I
hot
knew,
dog at it and see what
well, it's happened. I knew it was only a matter of time
Did it
before
really?
I lost a digit with my old one. Because, you start off with the table saw and you follow the safety requirements first.
Right.
But then you get
Something
kind of
doesn't
cocky.
fit, something doesn't work.
You get kind of cocky. Next thing you know, you're jamming your fingers in there. So got upgraded to a saw stop. It did save my life. I've had to replace it 3 times already.
3?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Wow.
Well, it was late night cutting a 2x4.
And then you guys go to the lake. when you
Yeah,
get a
we like
chance.
to. My in-laws have a dairy farm up, or used to have a dairy farm up by Ponset, so we like to get up there and screw around. So,
Right now at this point in my life, we do a lot of chauffeuring our kids around.
very good point.
Yeah,
That's what.
my wife does a lot of that, and travel sports.
Yeah.
Actually, my son just finally got his driver's license today. He's had his
Awesome.
learners for
Great.
a while. Finally got his driver's license today, so that's really makes me nervous.
Yep. It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, blessing and a curse. So we have a place down. We have a camper down by Pickstown.
Oh, yeah.
That we only hit like 3 times last year, but when we do get down there, that's a lot of fun. Chasing the kids around, on Sundays. I got a Traeger. I like to smoke some meat.
Yeah.
Try different
Brad's into
things.
meat.
Yeah, I bet he is. That mustache. So I like to try different things with that. It's always a crapshoot if it's going to work out or not.
Yeah.
I enjoy just hanging out, anytime at home. I also really enjoy riding. That's probably one of my things, along with like Joe, that I like to do, even though it's our livelihood, but it's different when you're on the bike.
Right.
Yeah. I tell you what, just this summer, I've kind of really committed to getting back on my bike. So even if it's 15 to 20 minutes at night, I'll just hop on and go for a quick rip around the neighborhood real quick just to kind of bust out some anger and aggression. And it goes a long way. So if everybody's listening, go rip around for a while. It's a good time. It helps out a lot.
I mean, you're kind of contained. You can't really do a whole lot, but you can really.
And I'm on a timer. Life gives me 25 minutes, so I can't get too crazy in 25 minutes. So.
So other than that, man, I mean, it's just life. You know what it's like with young kids. You don't really get in before you know it. Then they're going to be out of the house, right?
Yeah. We both have seniors this year that are graduating.
Yeah, that's crazy. Joe's oldest is going to be a freshman next year. I'm going to have a sophomore, and that's nuts.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But I am looking forward to those father-son rides. We used to go on to some of them with our old man, and that was pretty sweet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you say
You
is
want my notes?
yeah. most overrated thing about biker culture?
Most overrated thing. I don't know. What do you think it is?
Oh,
And then I'll just kind of maybe riff
Over-
off of that a little bit.
I don't know about overrated. Probably that like they're all like rough and gruff and mean people.
I will say, though, when I'm riding, I have a little bit of a slightly different attitude about myself. Like I feel a little different when I'm riding, and I think that's just the power of a motorcycle. Overrated, yeah. I mean, it's not all rough and gruff. You got your Dale Jans, and you got your Lonnie Entenmans, then Lyle Grenzes that are out there, riding. They ride fast for a couple of old guys, but But I think right now it's just like, I think one of the things, maybe what people think is that it's really expensive to get into a Harley. Here's my plug. It's not.
Right.
You can get into a touring bike for $395 a month.
There you go.
So,
Hey, look at that.
But it's just like, it's easy to get into, and that's one thing that our staff at our stores are really good about is helping people find the right motorcycle. We're take a little bit more of a low pressure approach to everything, and they're going to make sure that you fit on something really well. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think? There's anything that's
overrated. I guess I think the thing that popped in my head is the South Park episode where they're pretending to make the muffler noise, and then so that was a loud exhaust. People think that that's the thing, but at the same time, lately, what people make fun of is also fun, like that "Hell Yeah, Brother" song that's going around on social media now, right?
Yeah.
That kind of started from a biker, "Hey, brother," now people are having fucking fun with it. So, can we drop a squeaker noise in on that one? All right, cool.
You had to get one in.
I don't know, man. It's hard when you're in it all the time.
Yeah.
I guess it's hard to see how
Right.
other people maybe view us, but at the same time, who gives a shit? So.
Yeah.
Somebody walks in, they've never been on a bike. What's the first thing you tell them?
Hello.
Our guys on the floor.
My name is Joe.
Our guys on the floor are gonna be like, "Welcome in. How's your day going?"
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, "Lunch break. Day off." Just try to meet them and greet them, and and just make a friend.
That's Jim. I was just gonna say that Jimmy's really good about talking to our salespeople about just connecting with the customer, talking that rider to rider, right? Figuring out what brings them in. Are they dreaming about buying a motorcycle? Are they ready for the class? So just engaging and getting to know them goes a long way.
If you get somebody, if you just concentrate on making a friend with somebody when they walk in, if you get them to like you, if they like you, they're going to trust you. And if they trust you, then they're going to buy from you.
Yeah, and Jimmy's really big about talking about right selling. Our focus is selling the right product to the right person at the right time, right? Is making sure that we can fit them on a motorcycle that they're going to enjoy for the next 3 to 5 years, right? Because we want them to buy the bike and enjoy it because we enjoy motorcycles, and that's what we're pushing.
To me, I think one of the misconceptions is that it's like a special club. You have to meet a certain criteria to be eligible to ride a Harley or be welcomed in. It's not the case at all. I mean, just talking like Sturgis even, there's other bikes out there. People are like, well, I don't have a Harley, so I can't go to Sturgis. But I mean, the group here is truly, you can come from any walk of life. And
So we, at our bike, to your point, at our bike nights, it's any model, any make is welcome at our bike nights at any of our events. Any of our rides, any of our events, any of our things that we have going on Sunday. We want every brand of motorcycle out here hanging out.
And I'll tell you what, I don't even mind the crotch rocket riders. I got a lot of people that are like, "Oh, those damn crotch rockets making all that noise." Right? I'm like, shit, they're riding, man. They're having fun.
Future
what I'm
Harley
saying?
owners.
I kind of dig it.
Future Harley owners. And Harley even, last year, Harley did this ride challenge, ride for heroes. So they went out to the dealers and they're like, they have this whole thing. They want you to get They wanted all of our riders to ride 50 million miles, and if our riders rode 50 million miles, they would donate $1 million or over $1 million to 7 different veterans organizations. So that goal was beat, and then along with this, everybody that signed up, they were eligible for prizes throughout the promotion and went through the end of October, and then they gave away 5 motorcycles to riders too. This year, they're doing that again. And, we already have 300 people registered at this dealership for that. Last year, our dealership, we contributed 750,000 miles to the ride program. So we want to beat that at this. Was it 750,000?
No, we were over. Yeah, it was about
750 miles. 750,000. Harley wanted to do 50 million miles. So we did we came in 3rd nationwide out of all the Harley dealerships for most miles ridden. This year they're doing it again. Our goal is to beat that, and we want to get better. We want to do better than 3rd or 2nd. But one thing Harley's doing this year is they are allowing all makes and all models to participate in this promotion. Because, a lot of these veterans organizations and groups, not everybody rides a Harley, right? So we want other brands and other bikes to come into our store and sign up for this promotion and help us reach our mileage goals. So, and you can win a Harley along the way.
Hell yeah.
Harley coat still fits on an Indian bike.
It does.
Yep.
It does.
Yep.
Hey, we can convert Indian riders over to Harley, no problem, man. We do that a lot.
We do that a
Hey,
lot.
we fix mistakes. We're problem solvers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, guys, I feel like we could talk forever, but we probably better wrap it up. So wanted to thank you for your time and sharing some of your history and what's going on in the Harley world.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it,
you
guys.
thank you for this opportunity. I'm glad we were able to get it done.
And I think that's probably the one thing we didn't touch on, which we should, is you guys do a ton for the community. A lot of your rides, you could just mention that Harley does corporately, but you guys too do a ton for giving back. Make-A-Wish is a big thing you guys have been a part of. So
Over the years, Make-A-Wish, Emily's Hope, any veterans organization or anything that helps children. I mean, that's kind of that's what we'll do what we can.
And that's a lot of carryover from Jim and Lonnie and Yogi's passion about giving back to the community. Being in Sioux Falls our whole lives, our family goes back to like 1900 in Sioux Falls. So
great.
it's, being Sioux Falls residents, we're passionate about giving back. So.
Yeah, the community's given a lot to us, so there's nothing wrong with giving some back to the community.
Well, we appreciate you giving us a couple minutes to chat with you guys. It's been fun.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We'll see you at Bike
You
Night.
bet. Thanks, guys.
We appreciate you listening. Everything we do is a collaboration, and we appreciate you being here to share this with us.
Yeah, our goal is always the same, to build relationships, to build structures, and to tell the stories that we've experienced along the way.
Feel free to drop us a comment, share it with a friend, and like this podcast.
Or call me if you just want to talk about cows.
So until next time,
Keep building. No, get out of here.